He is so awesome. He spoke at our men's conference, and he has been one of those rare gifts to the body of Christ and to the church and to the world, really, that God's given us. He's written over 60 books and sold over 19 million books. It's amazing. He speaks at Fortune 500s, Fortune 100 companies all the time. I'll never forget reading a book about 20 years ago, and it absolutely changed the way I go about leading in my own personal life and in my ministry. He is a friend of ours, and I want you to give an awesome, all three campuses welcome to Dr. John Maxwell. Would you bring him on, please? Come on, let's honor him.
Thank you very much, David. Good morning. I am so delighted to be here with you and share what a great worship time. Do you have worship like that every Sunday? Oh my goodness! When you go to heaven, you're going to want to come home on the weekends, aren't you? Huh? That was just a great worship time, and of course, Pastor Robert's a great friend of mine. It's so good to be with you. Had a great men's retreat, enjoyed it immensely, and I'm just excited about today. They stuck a pile of books up here. Don't have very many of them, but let me just tell you what I do have back at the table. And when the service is over, I'll go back and I'll sign for you. I signed for almost an hour last night after the service. This one's called Running with the Giants. This is a book to encourage you. The Bible tells us we're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. And what I did is I took 10 of those witnesses out of the crowd, one by one. And they ran one lap with you, and they could only say one thing to you. So what would they say that was the most important thing to encourage you? This is a book to lift you up. If you don't want to be encouraged, don't buy this book, okay? And then my newest book that just came out, about 3 months ago, A Leader's Heart. And it's a one-page a day deal. It's a kind of a devotional, just every day. Take a page and a little place to put your thoughts on at the bottom. And it just really is a great book to kind of, for 3 minutes every day, focus on what's like to have a heart of God and a heart of a leader. This book's on communication. Everyone communicates, few connect. And it's basically how to find common ground with people. It's a relationship communication book. And I know you don't need this, but how many of you know somebody that doesn't connect? You know what I'm saying? You know, nobody's home, okay? Okay, well, they need that, all right? And then Today Matters. When people ask me, what's the most life-changing book you've ever written, this is it. Because I talk in here about 12 things that you ought to do daily that would absolutely set you up for success in life. And I call it the Daily Dozen, and it's called Today Matters. And basically, I say we over-exaggerate yesterday, we overestimate tomorrow, and we underestimate today. And we talk about what do you do in those 12 things. And the thing I'm most excited about, and I always make sure they bring this with me, is the Maxwell Leadership Bible. Of all the projects I've ever done, this is my favorite. For 25 years, I was a pastor, and I teach leadership a lot. Every leadership lesson that I've ever taught out of the Bible is in here. Over 600 lessons on leadership. And if you have a love for God and the Bible, and you want to be a spiritual leader, every time you turn a page, we've not only got scripture for you, but we have another spiritual leadership lesson for you. And I brought this along, and I said, bring extra ones because we've got Father's Days coming up, and we got graduations coming up. And this is a huge graduation gift, Father's Day gift. In fact, many of the dads have told me to tell you wives, go ahead and get this for them, okay? And this will just, if you love the Bible and you love leadership, you're going to, I think, enjoy that very, very much, okay? Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. My name's John. What's your name? What's your name? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Margaret and I have been married for 42 years. We have 2 children, both married, 5 grandchildren. How many grandparents are here? Oh, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about grandchildren, don't you, huh? Grandchildren are God's gift to you for not killing your children. So you that don't have grandchildren yet, I'm just pleading for your kids. Let them live. And that's a debatable thing sometimes. I mean, when they're teenagers, some days you say, should I not, just let them live because someday they're going to give you a grandbaby. When they give you that grandbaby, you're going to hold that precious child in your arms, and you're going to say, this is the smartest, most beautiful baby ever born. And then you ask a question. You do. You ask this question. Why did intelligence skip a generation? I was at a large convention, and I was telling that story, and I forgot that my son Joel was in the audience. And so when I finished, I went back to the green room, and he was waiting on me. I mean, he was waiting on me. You with me? He was waiting on me. And I looked at him and said, "Oh, Joel, about the story. I was just kidding. You know, I'm just having fun with the people. And he stopped. He said, "No, Dad, no, it's okay." He said, "I think you're right." I said, you think I'm right?" "Yes," he said. "In fact, just last week, Grandpa and I had that very same discussion." You're going to watch a video for a moment, for a couple minutes, of me teaching the lesson. In fact, the lesson I'm going to teach here, I teach at Christ Fellowship in the West Palm Beach, Florida area. And I was teaching on attitude, what I'm going to teach you this morning, a few months ago. And I was having problem with my music stand. It kept falling. Now, this has gone crazy over YouTube. Tens of thousands of people watch. I mean, it's gone viral, okay? And I wanted you to see it because, get the point, the music stand's not working. I'm teaching on attitude, and I'm trying to have a good attitude. You got the picture, don't you, huh? Okay, watch the clip for just a second.
What is your plan to pick up your Bible and your laminated cards and your old book, and then get in your Bible and find your place? What is your plan? Well, I got it. All is well. All is well. I love the story of the guy who would go to work and he'd open up his lunch and he'd complain. He said, "Oh, bologna sandwich again. I got a bologna sandwich again. This is the 4th time this week I've had a bologna sandwiches. I hate bologna sandwiches." And the guy beside says, "Heel." I hate cheap music stands. Especially when they interrupt my story. I'm right in the middle of a great story. Look at this, Todd. Could you talk to your dad about this? I mean, we just... Look at this. Okay. Would you take that? Oh, give me the rubber band. Thank you. Oh, am I getting the story now? Oh. You gotta get something you can depend on. There's a backup. Thank you. The message is on attitude. And I'm doing my best. I'm just doing my best. Just doing my best. You know the guy with the bologna sandwich? Forget it. Just forget it. You got to come to tomorrow's service. I'm not saying it tonight. I am not saying it. I will say it tomorrow.
And I didn't tell him the story that night. I didn't, but I'll tell you the story today, okay? About the middle of the message. We would all like to have a fulfilled life. And Paul tells us that if we want a fulfilled life, it's very simple. A fulfilled life is a result of filling our mind correctly. Now, the Ecclesiastes writer has a great statement on that I just love. And here's what he says. Wise thinking leads to right living, and stupid thinking leads to wrong living. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And your attitude, which is what we're going to talk about today, your attitude, my attitude, it's the paintbrush of our mind. In other words, we hold within our hand the possibility and the responsibility of filling our mind with the right things. And if we fill our mind with the right things, the Apostle Paul is going to teach us we live a fulfilled life. So as he's in Philippians chapter 4, he begins by talking about what does a fulfilled life look like. Let's look at it. He says, people with a fulfilled life celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in him. Make it as clear as you can to all that you meet that you're on their side, working with them and not against them. Help them to see that the master is about to arrive. He could show up at any minute. Don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. And before you know it, I love this, before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. Now, the Apostle Paul, in this short passage, describes a fulfilled life these 4 ways. He says, first of all, if you live a fulfilled life, 1, you celebrate God. A person that is fulfilled in their life understands that God is the giver of every good and perfect gift, and in the process of realizing that, they continually are in a sense of worship and celebration of God and who he is and what he has done for their life. Number 2, they add value to people. When you are fulfilled, you live beyond yourself. You're giving, you're caring, you're reaching, you're taking care of those people around you. You are a plus in their life. Number 3, you give God your concerns. He says, in this fulfilled life, one of the reasons it's so wonderful is you don't carry those concerns. You don't carry those anxieties. My mother's favorite verse, as I grew up, I've heard her say it 1,000 times. She'd say, John, cast all of your cares, your anxieties upon God, because he cares for you. And a fulfilled life is one that is not bogged down with just a lot of concerns. We constantly say, God, you are the one, as we sang today, that I trust in. And number 4, a fulfilled life is a person that experiences the wholeness of God. Not partial, not in compartments, but the fullness and the wholeness of God. Now look at those 4 things just for a moment. If you have a fulfilled life, you celebrate God, you add value to people, you give God your concerns, and you experience the wholeness of God. Now let me just do a survey this morning. How many of you would like to have that kind of a life? Would you raise your hand? It's kind of an IQ test, isn't it, huh? Now what I love about this is Paul at this stage says, now let me explain something to you. I'm going to tell you today at Gateway how you can have that. I'm going to tell you how you can have that fulfilled life. He says the key to the fulfilled life is filling your mind correctly. And beginning with verse 8, he talks about how to fill your mind correctly. Summing it all up, friends, I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things that are true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Put into practice what you've learned from me, what you've heard, saw, what you realize. Do that, and God makes everything work together and will work you into his most excellent harmonies. Now, we're going to come back to that. We're going to have to break that down, because in that he tells us how to fill our minds and how to really make that happen. Now, when I grew up as a kid, I'm the middle child. Wonderful, wonderful parents. My father understood the importance of putting good books in our hands and filling our minds with the right things. And so our allowance as children from the 7th grade on was for reading books. He would pay us to read books. We didn't get paid to, like most of my friends, they got paid to do chores. And in fact, I thought we should get paid to do chores. So I went to my dad and said, Dad, you know, my friends get paid to do chores, and I think that's a good idea, and I think you ought to pay us to do chores. He looked at me and said, Son, I'll never pay you to do chores. You do chores because you're part of the family. And I don't pay you to be part of the family. In fact, he said, let me explain it this time. By the time you were born, you already owed your mother for 9 months of room and board. So shut up and take out the garbage. You understand? You don't get paid. But he paid us to read books. And from the 7th grade on, he placed the books in our hands, and I read the classics. I read the classics. And in the 7th grade, I read the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I've read it every year since that time. It's only 77 pages, but James Allen in that book said, the greatest discovery of our generation is that mankind can alter his life by altering the way that he thinks. Now, that wasn't something James Allen came up with in his book on thinking. That was something that Apostle Paul came up with 2,000 years earlier when the Apostle Paul said, look, let me tell you something. You can alter your life by adjusting and changing your attitude. When I go to the dentist, do they do this here? When I go to the dentist, when I'm done, they always give me dental floss. Do they do it to you? They give you, and then they say, you know, use it. And I take that dental floss, and I just want you to know, religiously, in a disciplined life for the next 2 days, I use that. And you know what I wish, you know, the dental floss is to get all the stuff in between your teeth. Do you know what I wish because people have if they got a dental problem, they've got a real mind problem. You know what I wish? I wish that we could purchase mental floss. And wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had like a zipper on our head and we could just kind of unzip the head and open that sucker every morning and just go in and just take our attitude in our mind and wouldn't it be just to floss your mind? Or for you entrepreneurs, I want somebody to come up with what I would call sweet spirit spray. You know what we're going to use that for, don't you? Everybody that doesn't have a sweet spirit, has a bad attitude. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could purchase a spray? And all the people you work with that have a bad attitude. Huh? Come on, now talk to me, huh? People at work. You know that person at work that just drives you nuts? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just walk up to them and you just go, psst. Oh, yes. There's a market for that. How many of you would buy it? If you could buy sweet spirit spray, how many of you would buy that stuff? You say, of course, there's a market. Come on, entrepreneurs, get with it. And let me ask you this question. If you bought it, how many of you know who you'd use it on? Of course. How many of you are sitting beside that person right now? Oh, don't go there. Oh. Now the Apostle Paul says, I don't know if you can get mental floss. I don't know if you can really purchase some sweet spirits. But he said, let me help you here. Let me give you something that will really work in your life to change the way you think, which changes the way you and I live. And he talks about 4 things that people with great attitudes possess. Number 1, are you ready? Here we go. People with great attitudes possess a teachable spirit. What's he say? Verse 9, he says, put into practice what you've learned from me, what you heard, saw, and realized. In other words, practice these things. And teachability requires repeated, hard, long looks in the mirror. In other words, a person that's teachable looks in the mirror and says, I might be the problem. I've got to work on me. I've got to fix me. A person with a teachable spirit understands that it's not everybody else out there. It's probably me that's the issue. And teachability allows God and others to speak into our lives. When you see a person that's teachable, there's a humility about them in such a way that they allow God to speak to them, that they allow people that love them come and speak into their lives. Let me tell you a story. I pastored for several years in San Diego, a large church out there, and we saw tremendous growth, and I was probably in about my 10th year, and And at this time, I'm writing a lot of books, and I'm traveling a lot, even internationally some, and I'm very tired. And when I get tired, I get impatient. That's not a good quality. It's a terrible quality. But I have a tendency to be impatient. And the church needed to have some decisions made, of which I usually had the elders to process them very well. And in my impatience, I just made the decision, said, oh, forget it. I just make them, let's go. And I've been there for 10 years, and church is growing, and I had their leadership, and I knew that. And so I just made the decision, which was a terrible mistake, because the people had never seen me make a decision without consulting and praying and doing the whole work. And so they started to kind of say, what Pastor, what you doing there? What did you do that for? And instead of me backing off and having that teachable spirit I'm talking about, I got defensive. And I said, what do you mean? I've been here for 10 years. Come on, let's go, folks. Let's get with it. Quit complaining. And there was just a spirit of uneasiness in the congregation for a couple of weeks. And I was preparing a message, and I was just a little, to be honest with you, ticked at the people. And so I'm over in the Old Testament, because I love that passage, especially when it's in this kind of a setting, where when Moses was leading the children of Israel, they started complaining a lot. And remember the passage in the Bible where they complained, and one day the earth opened up and swallowed them up. I thought, oh, dear God, this is a timely message. And so I began working on this wonderful message of how God swallows up people who complain. And I'm just writing it, and I'm so excited, and it's just so good. And when I'm done, I think, oh, yes, please, Sunday come quickly. I got to preach this message, and I'm ready to go. And the next day, I'm looking at it again, kind of really reworking the notes, because there's a couple other zingers I think I can put in there. And God speaks to me. It says, John, the message isn't for the congregation. I said, well, who's it for? Don't ask God that question. He'll tell you. He said, John, it's for you. You're the problem. You're the one that has the bad attitude. You're the one that made the leadership mistake. You've thrown the people off curve. You're the problem. The message is for you. Well, I looked at that message. I said, well, I've got to get me another message for Sunday. No. He said, no. I want you to preach that one. In fact, I want you to preach it as hot and heavy as you were going to when you thought it was for them. And then at the end of the message, I want you to repent and ask their forgiveness. And I'm saying, Lord, let's talk. I know you're coming back sometime. Are there any odds of you coming back before Sunday? That morning I went out and preached that message hot and heavy like I had planned to for them, and at the end I wept. I just wept, and I said, look, you're not the problem, I'm the problem. In fact, it reminds me of my wife Margaret when my attitude gets out of whack, because I've written 5 attitude books. When my attitude gets out of whack, she looks at me and says, she doesn't say that, she just goes to my library and pulls out one of my attitude and brings me one of the books and says, you need to read this book. A teachable spirit is a person that says, okay, approach me, talk to me. I'm not going to be defensive. Talk to me. God, you talk to me. Let others. And Paul says, if you want to live a fulfilled life, you fill your mind with a teachable spirit. Always, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. And let me say this. A lot of Christians are educated way beyond the level of their obedience. So don't try to explain God until you understand Him. And in understanding God, it's that teachable spirit. Okay, number 2, we got to go on. Number 2, take responsibility. People with a great attitude, they take responsibility for their attitude. They look and they say, I am responsible for my attitude. Okay, they take responsibility for it. This is huge. And Paul talks about how do you do that? How do you and I take responsibility for the attitude we have? He says 3 things. 1, fill your mind on good things. In other words, you're the one that determines how you fill your mind. You're the one that determines what you fill your mind with. You're the one that determines what you read. You're the one that determines who you hang with. Fill your mind with good things. Number 2, meditate on good things. In other words, let it marinate in your mind and in your spirit. In other words, look at it and let it work through you and let it work in you and let it work you over. And thirdly, he said, then practice good things. That's huge. Fill your mind with good things. Meditate on good things. Practice good things. And the Apostle Paul says that's how you begin to take I'm responsible to fill my mind. I'm responsible to let it marinate and meditate on those things. And I'm responsible to, he said, take responsibility for your attitude. Now, the baloney story, you get the rest of the story. Guy's working with his buddy on construction. It's lunch. Opens his lunch pail. He sees a bologna sandwich in his lunch pail, and he goes off. I mean, he said, bologna sandwich. This is the 4th time this week I've had a bologna sandwich. I hate bologna sandwiches. Why do I always have to have a bologna sandwich in my lunch pail? And the guy beside him, he just looked at him. He said, calm down, go, relax. Hey, come on, chill. Take a pill. Come on, come on. Listen, he says, it can't be that bad, buddy. When you go home tonight, talk to your wife. Say that you don't like bologna sandwiches. Ask her to put some. He said, leave my wife out of it. I make my own sandwiches. Most of the bologna that you have in your life, you packed it. You put it in there, baby. Your spouse didn't put it in there. Your boss didn't put it in there. Where you live didn't put it in there. What your income didn't put. But no. You and I are responsible. And Paul says, take responsibility for your attitude. Number 3, okay. He says, possess a teachable spirit. Take responsibility for your attitude. Number 3, he says, travel the high road. You see, God chooses what we go through, but we choose how we go through it. And in verse 8, he tells us how to travel this high road. Fill your minds, he says, and meditate on, here we go, here's high road, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Travel the high road. In other words, I cannot always determine what happens to me, but I can always determine what happens in me. I can't control life, but I can control my attitude. I can control my response to life. And there are people that take the high road and they treat people better than what they've been treated. And there are people that take the low road. And what I've witnessed is the 2 people can be in the same environment, and one's taking high road and one's taking low road. One has a good attitude and one has a bad attitude. And they're in the same environment, same home, in the same workplace. And you look at it, and that's when you realize that it's not the workplace or the home that determines the attitude, it's the person that determines the attitude. Let me read this to you. I love this. This is a laminated card. And let me explain something about laminated cards. Whenever I pull a laminated card out, it is good. Understand that? When I like something, I laminate it. That's just, I think it just makes it holy, to be honest with you. If I had been Moses up on Mount Sinai at the 10 Commandments, I'd have laminated those. Yes, I would have put them on stone. Those babies break. You understand? They break. I'd have had laminated cards on the 10 Commandments. And this shows you high road, low road, how people think. Hey, this is 2 pets in the same home, a dog and a cat. And this is the dog's diary, and then I'll read you the cat's diary. The dog's diary. 8 a.m. dog food. My favorite thing. 9:30 a car ride. My favorite thing. 9:40 a walk in the park. My favorite thing. 10:30 a.m. got rubbed and petted. Oh, my favorite thing. Noon lunch. My favorite thing. Played in the yard at 1:10. My favorite thing. 3 p.m. wagged my tail. My favorite thing. 5 p.m. milk bones. My favorite thing. 7 p.m. got to play ball. My favorite thing. 8 p.m. wow. Watch TV with the people. My favorite thing. 11 p.m. sleeping on the bed. My favorite thing. Excerpts from a cat's diary. Day 983 of my captivity. My captors continue to taunt me with bizarre little dangling objects. The only thing that keeps me going is my dream of escape. High road, low road, choice is yours. Let me define it for you. Low road, that's when we treat people worse than they treat us. High road, that's when we treat people better than they treat us. Middle road, that's when we treat people the same as they treat us. And Paul says, if you want to have a fulfilled life, fill your mind, have a teachable spirit, take responsibility for the attitude. Thirdly, he says, travel the high road. And number four, understand the value. Understand the value of attitude. Understand the value of what a good attitude will do for you. See, there's a little difference in people, but that little difference is a big difference, and that little difference is the attitude. The big difference is whether it's positive or whether it's negative. And the value of the attitude can be greatly understood even at the beginning of things. A good attitude has value at the beginning of a task. In other words, all is well that begins well. And if you don't believe that, just ask any surgeon who's getting ready to take a patient into surgery. He knows that outlook of that patient is key. Ask a coach before a team plays ball. Ask a teacher before a class begins to take a test. That attitude at the beginning is so important. And the attitude, not only at the beginning is important, but a good attitude has value in the middle of the task. Sure does. It's in the middle of the task. Sometimes we get bogged down and get a little discouraged, a little tired. And an attitude of gratitude, which is huge. Here's what I've discovered. What we appreciate appreciates. In other words, the little things that we have, if we really value them and appreciate them, they appreciate. That's people with good attitude. They don't have to have a lot, but if they love what they have, it has a sense of appreciating within their life. And by the way, I've learned a long time ago that the more you complain, the less you obtain. So in the middle of the task, it's so important. And then at the end of the task, a good attitude has great value at the end of a task. Let me close with a story about my father. I wish my dad were here today. He's amazing. I was very blessed to have tremendous parents. My mother passed away almost 2 years ago. Mom and Dad had been married for 67 years. And Dad's 89, be 90 in November. And I just wish I had him here because he is the most positive person. He got an amazing attitude, an amazing spirit. And he is the world's greatest encourager. My dad, if you met him in the lobby in 2 minutes, you would not want to leave him. He builds into lives. He loves people unconditionally. And he just has this spirit of lifting people. After Mom passed away, we kind of thought we needed to maybe put him in a total care facility. He's in very good health, very good health. But we didn't like him by himself, and we kind of wanted to make sure we had people around him. And so there's a wonderful place in Winter Haven, Florida, just new facility there and total care kind of thing. And so Dad said, yeah, I'll move in there. And they were just finishing building. It wasn't even done. One day I was talking to Dad, and he said, son, I talked to them down there. See, my dad would go down, and the workers there that were building it, he'd go down and see them every day. He'd go back down and encourage them every day. They loved to see him come. I mean, and he'd go get them drinks and just serve them. And he said, I've talked to them down there, and I'm going to be the first to move in. Well, I said, Dad, that's kind of nice. I said, what do you want to be the first one to move in? He said, well, son, he said, it's important for me to be there because all of these old people are going to start coming in. And he said, these old people, they're coming in. They're worried. They're concerned. They're leaving their family, and some of them, this is a huge transition for them. And he said, they need somebody to encourage them. And he said, I'm going to be at the front door. And when anybody comes in, I'm going to be the first one to be. I'm going to be right at the front door, and I'm going to shake their hand. I'm going to say, my name is Melvin Maxwell, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to get acquainted, and we're going to have meals together. And I just want you to know everything's going to be fine. And I went, wow. We were having a discussion recently. He said, John, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? He said, isn't it wonderful that the older a person gets, the more they just love people? He said, I love more people. I love people more at 89 than I did at 69. He said, I just love people more. And I said, Dan, that isn't true with everybody. Oh, no, son, the older you get, the more. No, Dad. No, Dad. See, Dad, you have for 89 years been filling your mind with good stuff, and you are just full of good stuff, and you got unconditional love all over your body. When anybody just squeezes you, it just... I said, a lot of people, they haven't been filling their minds with that stuff. Can I tell you something? A lot of people are getting older, but they're not getting better. Huh? Come on, talk to me. Uh-huh. Maturity doesn't always come with age. Sometimes age comes alone. Mm-hmm. So what's the secret? The secret's very simple. The Apostle Paul said, you can live a fulfilled life if you fill your mind with the good things. And the reason that I wanted to preach a simple little message today is just for this. You got a beautiful church, and God's doing amazing things in this congregation. You have terrific leadership here. You are one of the truly great churches in America, but you have just begun what can happen here. I mean, you haven't even tasted yet the goodness of God and what's going to happen to you. But I want to tell you something. A lot of your success in the future and a lot of your success personally is going to be on the fact that you fill your mind with the right things. And when you fill your minds with the right things, the good stuff's inside of you. And when people come around you, the good stuff just creeps out and they feel the good stuff. And that's just the way God works. So let me challenge you today. Do what Paul said. And when you're 89, you'll love people like my dad. God bless you. Thank you very much.